The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty highway. It was 2:17 p.m., the air shimmering with heat, and my trusty minivan, affectionately nicknamed Bessie, rumbled along like a tired old camel. Inside, my wife, Sarah, and our two kids, 10-year-old Max and 7-year-old Lily, were bickering over a crumpled bag of chips. Standard vacation chaos. We were on a road trip from Denver to San Diego, a chance to escape the monotony of city life and soak up some desert sunshine. Now, halfway through the seemingly endless stretch of highway, I was starting to regret not taking the more scenic, albeit longer, route. Suddenly, Max shrieked, pointing out the window. "Look, Dad! Bugs!" I glanced over, expecting a swarm of cicadas, a common sight in these parts. But a cold dread filled me as I saw what he was pointing at. Not bugs. Scorpions. Dozens of them, their black bodies gleaming under the harsh sunlight, scuttled across the asphalt in a horrifyingly coordinated wave. My stomach lurched. It wasn't uncommon to see scorpions in Arizona, but this was something else entirely. This was an infestation. "Whoa, cool!" Lily chirped, oblivious to the danger. "They're like tiny lobsters." "Not cool, Lily," Sarah snapped, her voice tight with worry. "Those are scorpions, and they can sting you real bad." Before Lily could ask any more questions, the scorpions reached the car. With a horrifying scraping sound, they began climbing the tires, their long, segmented bodies pulsating with a predatory grace. Max shrieked again, burying his face in Sarah's lap. Panic surged through me. I slammed my foot on the gas, but Bessie, weighed down by luggage and memories, groaned in protest. The scorpions kept climbing, their clicking mandibles a horrifying soundtrack to our terror. "They're getting in!" Sarah screamed, pointing at a particularly large one scaling the passenger side window. I swerved the car, narrowly avoiding a slow-moving RV in the opposite lane. The scorpions tumbled off, but more took their place, their numbers seemingly endless. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I desperately scanned the horizon. No gas station, no rest stop, nothing but miles of parched desert and a monstrous tide of venomous horror closing in on us. "Dad, what are we gonna do?" Max whimpered, tears welling up in his eyes. "Think, Mark, think." My mind raced. Remembering a documentary I'd seen about surviving scorpion encounters, I yelled, "Roll up the windows! Lock the doors!" With trembling hands, Sarah and I did as instructed. Max and Lily, finally understanding the gravity of the situation, scrambled to lock their doors too. The air inside the car grew hot and stale, the smell of plastic and fear filling the cramped space. Outside, the clicking of mandibles intensified. Scorpions swarmed over the hood, windshield, and roof, their clicking echoing like a demonic symphony. Every scrape against the metal sent shivers down my spine. "They're gonna get in!" Lily screamed, pointing at a crack in the window. I lunged for the glove compartment, searching for a tool, anything to seal the gap. My hand closed around a roll of duct tape, a lifesaver from a previous road trip mishap. With shaking hands, I ripped off a strip of tape and plastered it over the crack, praying it would hold. Sarah did the same on the other side, her face grim with determination. We patched every hole, every crevice, hoping to create a makeshift barrier against the swarming tide. The clicking subsided slightly, but it didn't stop. The scorpions were relentless, their bodies blotting out the sunlight, casting the car in a chilling, oppressive shadow. Max whimpered, burying his face in Sarah's lap. Lily, usually full of boundless energy, sat uncharacteristically still, her eyes wide with terror. Time seemed to slow down, each second an eternity of scraping, clicking horror. The air inside the car grew thick with the acrid smell of burning chitin, a sickening reminder that some of the scorpions were meeting their fiery demise on the hot engine block. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, a faint siren pierced the oppressive silence. Hope, a fragile flame, flickered in my chest. Could it be? Then, I saw it, a flashing red and blue light in the distance, growing closer with every passing second. A police car, its siren wailing like a song of salvation. The scorpions, sensing the arrival of their nemesis, scattered in a flurry of clicking chaos. They scuttled off the car, some falling victim to the hot asphalt, others disappearing into the roadside scrub. The police car screeched to a halt in front of us, its siren finally silenced. A tall, weathered officer, his face etched with concern, stepped out of the car. He approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the scene. The car was a grotesque tableau, covered in scorpions, some dead and sizzling, others still twitching their venomous stingers. "Hold on there," the officer shouted, his voice a welcome sound in the deafening silence that followed the swarm's retreat. He gestured to us. "Stay in the vehicle until I make sure it's safe." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I slumped back in my seat, my body drained. Sarah and the kids clung to me, their silent gratitude a balm to my frayed nerves. The officer slowly walked around the car, his flashlight beam cutting through the gathering dusk. After a tense minute, he returned to his car and spoke into his radio, his voice a muffled hum. A few minutes later, another vehicle, a park ranger truck, pulled up behind the police car. A young ranger, her face grim, stepped out and conferred with the officer. They both looked at our car, then back at us. Finally, the officer approached again. "All right, folks," he said, his voice calmer now. "Looks like you ran into a nasty scorpion swarm. Luckily, it seems they've moved on." "Moved on?" I stammered. "Where did they go?" The ranger answered, her voice laced with a hint of worry. "These swarms are unpredictable. Could be anywhere by now. We'll get animal control out here to investigate the area, but you won't be going anywhere in that car." My heart sank. Stranded in the middle of nowhere with a car coated in dead and dying scorpions? Not exactly the vacation memory I had envisioned. "There's a motel about 20 miles back," the officer offered. "We can give you an escort. Your car will need a thorough cleaning and inspection before it's safe to drive again." Disappointment gnawed at me, but safety was paramount. We thanked the officer and ranger profusely, their arrival a turning point in our nightmare. The escort back to the motel felt surreal, a police car with flashing lights clearing the way for our scorpion-infested minivan. At the motel, the manager, a kind-faced woman with a permanent crease of worry on her forehead, took pity on us. She secured a room and even offered to have the car towed to a local mechanic who specialized in, well, let's just say scorpion-related car problems weren't something he advertised. The rest of the night was a blur of exhaustion and nervous relief. Max and Lily, still shaken, clung to us, peppering us with questions we couldn't answer. Sarah and I tried to project a sense of calm, but the memory of the relentless swarm still sent shivers down our spines. The next day, the news reported on the mystery swarm that had terrorized a stretch of the highway. Apparently, heavy rains combined with construction work had disturbed a hidden scorpion nest, causing the massive exodus. The car repairs took an agonizing 2 days. The mechanic, a gruff old man with a handlebar mustache, told me he'd never seen anything like it. He cleaned the car inside and out, fumigated it 3 times, and finally declared it scorpion-free with a grimace. The rest of our vacation was a subdued affair. We visited museums and ate at restaurants, the desert landscape holding a new kind of fear for us. The image of those swarming, clicking scorpions would forever be etched in our minds. We returned home early, the once cherished Arizona souvenirs now gathering dust on a shelf, a constant reminder of our terrifying brush with a desert nightmare. The car, Bessie, never felt quite the same. Every click and scrape on the road sent a jolt of fear through me, a phantom echo of mandibles on metal. But amidst the lingering fear, there was gratitude too, gratitude for the quick arrival of the police and ranger, for the kindness of the motel manager, and for the resilience of our family. We had faced a horror straight out of a nightmare and emerged shaken but unharmed. It was a vacation we would never forget, a stark reminder of the raw power and unforgiving beauty of nature. And perhaps, a newfound respect for the humble duct tape, a lifesaver in the most unexpected of situations. Let's hop onto story number 2, but before I begin reading, make sure that you have subscribed to Mr. Scare for regular horror podcasts. My beat-up Subaru, affectionately nicknamed the Rusty Nail, rumbled down the deserted highway, its headlights carving twin tunnels through the inky night. The clock on the dashboard blinked a merciless 2:13 a.m. Exhaustion gnawed at my eyelids, a constant battle between the adrenaline of a late-night road trip and the exhaustion of finals week. I was the designated driver for the impromptu graduation trip, our small college group fleeing the oppressive confines of dorms and textbooks for a weekend of camping in the remote wilderness of Montana. Beside me, Sarah, her head resting on my shoulder, hummed along to the faint melody playing on the dying radio. In the back seat, Emily and Alex bickered playfully over a bag of stale chips. This wasn't exactly how I envisioned celebrating graduation. My dream trip to Europe was a distant memory, replaced by this last-minute, budget-friendly alternative. But seeing the joyful, sleep-deprived faces of my friends, the shared excitement for an escape, warmed my heart. Suddenly, the radio sputtered and died, replaced by a hiss of static. I frowned, adjusting the dial to no avail. "Great, just what we need," Sarah mumbled, finally lifting her head. "Don't worry," I said, trying to sound confident. "It's probably just a weak signal out here." A few miles down the road, headlights appeared in the distance, growing rapidly in my rearview mirror. A sigh of relief escaped my lips. Some company on this lonely stretch of highway. With a flash of silver, a sleek Audi zipped past us, its occupants barely casting a glance our way. As the Audi pulled ahead, I noticed something strange. The two lanes of the highway seemed to narrow. "Hey, Sarah, is it just me, or does the road look different?" I asked, squinting at the dark asphalt disappearing ahead. She peered forward, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Yeah, it does seem narrower." A shiver danced down my spine. We were definitely on a two-lane highway when we left campus. Had we taken a wrong turn somewhere? It was pitch dark, navigating by starlight and infrequent highway signs. Then, abruptly, our headlights illuminated the edge of the road. Not a divider line, but a sheer drop-off plunging into an abyss of darkness. "The hell?" I yelped, slamming on the brakes. The car skidded, tires screaming, as we lurched to a halt mere inches from the edge. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my lungs. My vision blurred as I took in the scene. The highway, the one we'd been driving on for hours, had simply vanished. On one side, a guardrail and the familiar two-lane highway. On the other, an endless expanse of darkness, the ground dropping away into an unseen void. "What the?" Sarah stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Emily and Alex, finally silenced by the sudden stop, looked back at us, their faces etched with terror. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ragged gasps of our breaths. The car engine idled, a mocking reminder of our vulnerability. "There must be some kind of explanation," Sarah said, trying to sound calm. "Maybe a construction zone or..." Her voice trailed off as we noticed a chilling detail. The guardrail on our side of the road ended abruptly at the point where the highway vanished. It was as if the road had been cleanly sliced off, leaving us stranded on a precarious ledge. The full weight of the situation slammed into me. This wasn't a prank, a faulty exit, or a construction zone. This was something else entirely. Fear, cold and primal, clawed at my throat. My mind raced, searching for a solution, any solution, but all I could picture was the endless darkness waiting to claim us if we made one wrong move. "What now?" Alex's voice, a tremor barely audible, broke the horrified silence. I had no answer. My hands trembled as I tried to reach for my phone. Of course, no signal. "Maybe the Audi saw what happened," Sarah offered, her voice trembling slightly. "They can call for help." Hope flickered briefly in my chest. But as we watched, the headlights of the Audi reappeared in the distance, seemingly driving on a perfectly normal two-lane highway. The phantom road remained invisible to them. The hopelessness of our situation settled in like a suffocating fog. We were trapped on a sliver of asphalt in the middle of nowhere, with no way back and no way forward. Time stretched into an eternity. We huddled together in the car, the silence punctuated only by the occasional squeak of a rodent outside as dawn began to paint the horizon with streaks of orange and pink, casting long, distorted shadows on the remaining asphalt. A flicker of movement in the distance caught my eye. Squinting against the rising sun, I saw a figure approaching in the distance. Relief washed over me in a wave so powerful it nearly brought me to my knees. It was someone, a human being, a potential lifeline in our terrifying situation. Sarah, Emily, Alex. "Look!" I exclaimed, pointing excitedly. The figure emerged from the pre-dawn haze, revealing a tall, weathered woman in a worn cowboy hat and dusty jeans. She carried a walking stick and approached us cautiously, her eyes narrowed against the sun. "You folks lost?" she called out, her voice raspy with age. "Lost?" I stammered, unsure how to articulate our predicament. We don't know how, but the road just vanished." The woman stared at us for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, a flicker of understanding crossed her face. "Ah," she said, nodding slowly. "You've stumbled onto the Devil's Highway." "Devil's Highway?" Sarah echoed, fear creeping back into her voice. The woman gestured towards the abyss with her walking stick. "Been here for generations, they say. A stretch of road cursed by restless spirits. Folks vanish, cars disappear, swallowed by the darkness." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the last thing I needed, a supernatural explanation for our predicament. But a part of me, a desperate part, clung to the possibility that this woman, with her cryptic warnings and local knowledge, might have a way out. "Is there any way to get back?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman studied us for a long moment before speaking. "There's a way, but it ain't easy. It requires courage and a sacrifice." "Sacrifice?" Alex squeaked, his voice barely a squeak. "Something of value," the woman explained. "Something you hold dear. Only then will the Devil's Highway relinquish its hold." Dread pooled in my stomach. What did she mean by a sacrifice? Was she asking for one of our lives? Our eyes met, a silent conversation passing between us. We were terrified, desperate, but surrendering a piece of ourselves seemed too steep a price. The woman sighed, sensing our hesitation. "There's another way," she said, her voice grim. "But it's dangerous. The road may reappear on its own, but it might not be stable. A wrong move, a single slip, and..." She trailed off, gesturing towards the abyss. The silence held the weight of our decision. Stay put on solid ground, facing the unknown, or risk taking a potentially deadly journey on a phantom highway. Looking at the faces of my friends, pale with exhaustion and fear, I knew there was only one answer. "We'll take our chances with the road," I declared, my voice firmer than I felt. The woman nodded, a hint of respect flickering in her eyes. She disappeared into the brush for a moment, returning with a small, weathered map sketched on a scrap of paper. It showed a barely discernible route skirting the edge of the abyss, the Devil's Highway, a faint, wavering line. "Follow this path," she instructed, pointing to the map. "It'll be slow, treacherous, but it should lead you back to the regular highway." We thanked her profusely, a mix of fear and gratitude bubbling inside us. As she turned to leave, she paused and looked back at me. "One more thing," she said, her voice low. "Don't look back." The meaning hung heavy in the air. A shiver ran down my spine. Was there something pursuing us, something lurking in the abyss? I didn't dare ask. With a final nod, the woman disappeared into the brush, leaving us alone on the edge of our terrifying predicament. Taking a deep breath, I gripped the steering wheel, my hands slick with sweat. We followed the makeshift map, its rough markings our only guide. The road was more a dirt track, barely wide enough for the rusty nail, and crumbling at the edges. A sheer drop yawned beside us, a constant reminder of the danger we were in. The drive was an agonizing crawl. Each turn, each bump, sent a jolt of fear through our bodies. We didn't dare look back, fueled by the woman's cryptic warning and the sheer terror of what might be there. Hours passed in a blur of dust, sweat, and silent prayers. The sun climbed higher, baking the cracked earth and turning our throats to sandpaper. By noon, we hadn't seen a sign of the regular highway, but the Devil's Highway seemed to be solidifying, the asphalt peeking through the dusty surface more frequently. Suddenly, Emily gasped, pointing ahead. A thin line of shimmering heat haze wavered in the distance. It shimmered, distorted, like a mirage. But as we drove closer, the shimmering resolved into a familiar sight, the other lane of the highway, complete with guardrail and the white line running down the center. Relief washed over me so potent it almost made me lightheaded. We had escaped the Devil's Highway. With trembling hands, I steered the rusty nail onto the solid asphalt. A feeling of overwhelming euphoria swept through the car. We were safe. We had cheated death, or perhaps the devil's bargain. We didn't speak for a while, each lost in our own private relief. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "Do you think?" She began, but didn't finish the question. "Do I think what?" "Do you think we left something behind?" she asked hesitantly. The woman's words about a sacrifice echoed in my mind. Had we given up something? A part of ourselves? The fear of the unknown, the terror of the abyss, would those memories forever haunt us? I glanced back at the direction we came from, a shiver running down my spine. But there was nothing to see, just a seemingly endless stretch of highway disappearing into the dusty horizon. "I don't know," I said finally. "But one thing's for sure, we'll never be the same." We continued the drive in a subdued mood. The celebratory spirit of the trip had been replaced by a profound sense of unease. The image of the abyss, the desolate landscape, and the cryptic encounter with the woman would forever be etched in our memories. Reaching the campsite, a rustic clearing tucked away in the Montana wilderness, felt strangely surreal. The towering pines, the gurgling stream, none of it could erase the unsettling feeling that lingered. The rest of the camping trip was a blur. We went through the motions, hiking, fishing, sharing stories around a crackling campfire, but the experience on the Devil's Highway hung over us like a dark cloud. We returned from our trip, tanned, exhausted, and strangely changed. College life resumed, but it felt different, shadowed by the memory of our terrifying encounter. Years later, reunited for a college reunion, the conversation inevitably turned to that fateful night on the highway. None of us could explain it, the missing highway, the cryptic woman, the woman's warning. Was it a shared delusion brought on by exhaustion? A trick of the light in the vast emptiness of Montana? Or was it something more, something we couldn't comprehend? We never spoke of it again publicly, dismissing it as a strange, shared hallucination. But amidst the laughter and reminiscing, a silent understanding hung in the air. We had glimpsed something beyond the veil of reality, something terrifying and unsettling. And the memory of the Devil's Highway and the unspoken sacrifice would forever bind us together. The July sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty Arizona highway, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. Inside our trusty minivan, affectionately named the Wanderer, a battle raged between the icy blasts of air conditioning and the relentless heat seeping through the windows. Behind the wheel, I drummed my fingers against the steering wheel, trying to ignore the chorus of "Are we there yet?" emanating from the back seat. This was our annual family road trip, a tradition since before my kids, 10-year-old Emily and 8-year-old Max, were even born. This year's destination, the Grand Canyon, a majestic natural wonder I desperately wanted to share with them. However, the 8-hour drive from Phoenix seemed determined to test our patience. Suddenly, Sarah, my wife, who was navigating with an outdated GPS, gasped. "Honey, there's an accident up ahead. It looks bad." I squinted through the windshield. A plume of black smoke billowed into the sky, obscuring a bend in the highway a few miles ahead. Panic flickered in my chest, and I tightened my grip on the wheel. "Pull over," Sarah commanded, her voice sharp. "We need to see if anyone needs help." I steered towards the wide shoulder and stopped the car. Emily and Max, sensing the urgency in our voices, craned their necks out the window, their faces etched with concern. I reached for the radio, hoping to find a news report about the accident. Instead, static filled the air. I fiddled with the dial, frustration mounting, before giving up. "Probably a bad signal out here," I muttered. We climbed out of the car, squinting through the heat haze. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as a police car, lights flashing, screeched to a halt on the other side of the accident site. Fire trucks followed close behind, weaving through the increasingly heavy traffic. A family in a nearby car also stepped out, their faces pale. The woman approached us, her voice trembling. "Did you see it?" she asked, pointing towards the plume of smoke. "No," I replied, shaking my head. "Just heard a bang and saw all that smoke." "It was a truck," the man from the other car chimed in, his voice grim. "A runaway semi. No lights, just careening down the road." My blood ran cold. A runaway semi? The image of a hulking, out-of-control vehicle filled my mind, sending a jolt of fear through me. As if on cue, a frantic voice crackled through my phone's loudspeaker. It was the emergency alert system, runaway semi-truck on I-40 eastbound approaching mile marker 218. Vehicles in the area, use caution and pull over if safe to do so. My stomach churned. Mile marker 218. That was just a few miles ahead. Get back in the car, I barked at Sarah and the kids, pushing them towards the minivan. We piled back into the Wanderer, urgency propelling me to slam the car door and start the engine. A glance back showed the plume of smoke dissipating, leaving behind a mangled guardrail and a charred patch on the road. The accident scene was a stark reminder of the danger that awaited us. With a heavy foot on the accelerator, I surged back onto the highway, merging cautiously with the crawling traffic. Every passing car seemed to impede our progress, fueling my growing anxiety. "Where are you going, Dad?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We need to get ahead of that truck," I explained, keeping my voice calm despite the frantic pounding in my chest. "It's dangerous." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. "You think they'll catch it?" I shook my head, a knot tightening in my throat. My mind raced, replaying the woman's words, no lights, just careening down the road. It was like something out of a nightmare, and the reality was settling in with terrifying clarity. As we finally cleared the congested area near the accident, my phone cracked back to life. Another emergency alert, multiple reports of runaway vehicles on I-40 eastbound. Please exercise extreme caution and avoid driving on this section of highway if possible. Multiple runaway vehicles? What was going on? This wasn't just one rogue semi anymore. A chilling premonition gnawed at me. We were smack dab in the middle of whatever was causing this vehicular chaos. Just then, I spotted it in my rearview mirror, a monstrous semi-truck, its chrome grille glinting menacingly in the afternoon sun. But it wasn't the flashing lights and sirens I expected. This one was dark, its trailer devoid of reflective markings, like a phantom hurtling down the highway. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my lungs. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, the Wanderer straining under the pressure. In the back seat, Emily and Max burst into terrified cries. Sarah gripped the dashboard, her knuckles white. The semi-truck gained on us with terrifying speed. The speedometer needle climbed towards 80, a reckless pace on a crowded highway, but every instinct screamed at me to go faster. In the side mirror, I watched the monstrous vehicle grow larger, its dark silhouette dwarfing the cars around us. It seemed determined, a runaway juggernaut hell-bent on a collision. My mind raced, searching for an escape route. The shoulders were lined with trucks, leaving no room to maneuver. Up ahead, a long stretch of construction narrowed the highway further, creating a choke point. "There!" Sarah exclaimed, pointing to a barely visible gap between a semi and a pickup truck on the upcoming left lane. "Can you squeeze through?" Hope flickered briefly in my chest. It was a tight squeeze, a risky maneuver, but it was our only chance. With a deep breath, I gripped the steering wheel and steered towards the gap. The car lurched and scraped as we squeezed through, the roar of the passing semi filling the car. I glanced back, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. The runaway semi, undeterred, continued its pursuit, its dark form now looming in the rearview mirror of the pickup truck beside us. "They're not stopping!" Max screamed, his voice choked with fear. Panic threatened to consume me, but the terrified faces in the rearview mirror spurred me on. I couldn't let this monstrous vehicle win. I pushed the Wanderer even harder, the engine whining in protest. Through the blur of passing cars, I noticed a sign marking an upcoming exit. It was our only hope. With a desperate jerk of the steering wheel, I swerved towards the exit ramp, tires screeching in protest. The runaway semi, seemingly anticipating our move, veered towards the left lane, aiming to block our escape. The space between the pickup truck and the concrete barrier narrowed to a terrifying degree. "Dad, we can't fit!" Emily shrieked. In a split second, a gut-wrenching decision flashed through my mind. I knew it was risky, near suicidal, but it was our only chance. I slammed my foot on the brake, bringing the Wanderer to a screeching halt inches from the pickup truck. The monstrous semi, unable to react in time, slammed into the back of the pickup truck. A deafening crash filled the air as metal crumpled and glass shattered. The force of the impact sent the pickup truck spinning wildly across the lane, its mangled remains coming to a rest against the concrete barrier. We watched, frozen in horror, as the semi screeched to a halt a few meters ahead, its blackened grille smoking ominously. The silence that followed the crash was thick and heavy, broken only by the moans of the shaken truck driver who had miraculously emerged from his mangled vehicle. Relief, like a warm wave, washed over me. We were alive. Shaken, terrified, but alive. The accident scene became a chaotic ballet of flashing lights and sirens. Police officers swarmed around the wreckage, tending to the injured and investigating the cause of the accidents. We remained in our car, the adrenaline slowly draining from our bodies, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. Looking at my terrified children, their faces pale and drawn, I knew this road trip would forever be etched in our memories, a terrifying reminder of a day we narrowly escaped a metallic nightmare. The cause of the runaway vehicles remained a mystery. News reports speculated on electrical malfunctions or a hacking attack, but nothing concrete emerged. But for us, there was no need for an explanation. We had witnessed the consequences firsthand, and that was enough. The rest of the trip to the Grand Canyon was a blur. The majestic natural wonder paled in comparison to the trauma we had experienced. Our family gathered closer, a bond forged in fear and survival. We never spoke of the runaway semi on the highway again. But the memory lingered, a dark cloud hanging over our annual road trip tradition. Perhaps it was a sign, a premonition that some journeys are best left untaken. But in the quiet moments, when the summer sun beat down and the highway shimmered in the heat haze, I couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror, a shiver running down my spine, half expecting to see a dark silhouette hurtling towards us, its malevolent presence a chilling reminder of the day we danced with disaster. Years passed. Our kids grew older, the memory of the runaway semi fading into a hazy, unsettling dream. We resumed our annual road trips, venturing further afield, exploring new landscapes. Life became a routine of school plays, science fairs, and first crushes. One sweltering July morning, 10 years after our harrowing experience, we found ourselves back on I-40, this time heading east towards the Great Smoky Mountains. A sense of déjà vu washed over me as we crossed the dusty Arizona plains, the heat shimmering off the asphalt. "Hey, remember that time we almost got hit by that runaway truck?" Max asked, his voice laced with a hint of teenage bravado. Emily, now a young woman, grimaced. "Don't remind me. That was the scariest thing ever." Sarah, sensing my unease, squeezed my hand. "It's okay, honey. That was a long time ago." I forced a smile, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. After all, it was just a bad memory, a freak occurrence. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life. A familiar voice, laced with urgency, cut through the static. It was the emergency alert system. Multiple reports of runaway vehicles on I-40 eastbound approaching mile marker 218. Please exercise extreme caution and pull over if it is safe to do so. My blood ran cold. Mile marker 218. The same stretch of highway. The same chilling message. A glance at Sarah confirmed my worst fears. Her eyes widened, mirroring the terror I felt clawing its way up my throat. In the rearview mirror, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A dark shape, a monstrous silhouette, was gaining on us in the distance. Just like before, the semi-truck was devoid of lights, its trailer like a gaping maw. Panic surged through me, but this time, it was different. This time, we weren't scared teenagers. This time, we were seasoned survivors. With a steely resolve, I slammed my foot on the gas, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Hold on!" I shouted, my voice hoarse with determination. We wouldn't outrun this thing again. This time, we had a plan. As the semi closed the distance, I remembered the barely visible exit we had used a decade ago. With a desperate jerk of the steering wheel, I swerved onto the exit ramp, ignoring the screeching tires and Sarah's gasp. The semi, this time anticipating our move, veered sharply, its dark silhouette looming above us. But we were prepared. We had practiced this scenario in the quiet corners of our minds, a morbid game fueled by the memory of our near-death experience. This time, the exit was clear. We raced down the ramp, the semi hot on our tail, its deafening roar echoing through the canyon walls. Just as we reached the bottom of the ramp, a state trooper station materialized before us. A flashing blue light cut through the dust, a beacon of hope in the chaos. With a final screech, we slammed to a halt inches from the patrol car. The semi, unable to stop in time, plowed into the dirt embankment beyond, throwing up a plume of dust and debris. Exhausted but alive, we stumbled out of the Wanderer, a wave of relief washing over us. The trooper, a young woman with a grim expression, helped us to safety. News reports later confirmed that the runaway vehicles were caused by a coordinated cyber attack, a chilling reminder of the vulnerabilities of our modern world. But for us, the incident held a deeper meaning. It was a testament to the strength of family, the resilience of the human spirit, and the lingering terror of a metallic nightmare that refused to stay buried in the past. We continued our journey towards the Great Smoky Mountains, the memory of the runaway semi a stark reminder that even on familiar roads, danger could lurk in the shadows, disguised as a phantom hurtling down the highway. But this time, we faced it head-on and emerged stronger, our bond forged anew in the crucible of fear and survival. The road trip continued, a testament to the enduring human spirit, forever marked by the chilling echo of a dark silhouette against the Arizona sun.